This podcast is made possible by you, the supporters of WPLN and WNXP, Nashville Public Radio.
This is the Nashvillager Podcast. It's December 3rd, 2024. On this day in 1910, people at the Paris Motor Show got the world's first look at a modern neon light. A few years later, the cutting-edge technology made its way to this side of the Atlantic when a Los Angeles car dealership installed neon signage. The glowing evidently wowed people so much that there were traffic jams of folks slowing down to get a look at the so-called liquid fire. I'm Nina Cardona, and this is your daily digest of what's happening around Middle Tennessee from Nashville Public Radio, WPLN News. And we're going to start out on a light note today. You know, these days, neon signs are an essential part of downtown Nashville's aesthetic. The giant guitars marking the Ernest Tubb Record Shop and Robert's Western Wear, the flying pigs of Jack's Barbecue, glowing letters spelling out ribs at Rippy's, and a font that looks like lumber for the stage. Oh, and of course, the purple orchid that is Tootsie's signature. The sign advertising Hatch show print goes way back to 1948. The story goes that country musician Roy Acuff ordered campaign signs from Hatch when he ran for governor of Tennessee. The political effort failed, but the order was lucrative enough that the print shop's owners could splurge on a fancy new sign of enameled metal and neon tubes. It cost about $230 at the time. When the shop moved into the Country Music Hall of Fame, the sign moved too, and when it needed repairs a few years back, a neon sign company based in Murray County was able to restore it. Columbia Neon has been around even longer than that Hatch sign. The company opened in 1934. One of the first signs Columbia Neon ever made has been split into two, so neon fans visiting that community have two places to catch a glimpse. The letters M-O-T-E-L still shine on Highway 31 where the old Polk Motel used to stand. The portion spelling out the name of that establishment has been moved to a display inside the Columbia Visitor Center. But even within the Nashville city limits, neon fans can find plenty to enjoy well off the crowded strip of Lower Broad honky-tonks. There's the no vacancy sign at the Loveless, possibly confusing visitors who don't know that the restaurant and its shops have completely taken over all the rooms that used to make it a motel. I've been told that the red and green sign at Wendell Smith's on Charlotte used to tell folks from dry counties west of Davidson that they'd finally arrived at the spot where they could buy booze. The liquor store is still there, as well as the Meat and Three that the neon advertises with an all caps "Eat." Over in Hillsborough Village, the sign for one long-shuttered business offers a hint at why Bongo Java's outpost in that neighborhood is called Fido. The storefront used to house the Jones Pet Shop. When the coffee shop moved in, the neon sign of a doghouse was kept in place, and a dog-themed name was adopted for the new business. The mix of neon tubes and twinkling light bulbs advertising Village Cleaners is just a block or two away. Rumor says those guys handled Little Richard's laundry. And unlike the pet shop, they are still doing business. Down the road in Green Hills, Fox's Donut Den has one of the city's more delicious examples of neon signage. I'm being really literal here. The sign explicitly says the word delicious underneath a rolling donut. East Nashville lost one of its most distinctive neon signs a few years ago in the March 2020 tornado, but the owners of Weiss Liquors collected the pieces of the shattered sign and had an exact copy made, complete with a jar tipping out a single drop just over the eye in liquor. But when the threat to a sign is development, well, that's when we lose our neon. So goodbye to the giant bowling pin and red arrow marking Donaldson Bowl. Thankfully, there are photos online to remember it by. In just a few minutes, mothers who left Tennessee because of this state's ban on gender-affirming care for their transgender children. That's coming up after the newscast.
The justice system is complicated. I'm Paige Flager, and as WPLN's criminal justice reporter, I'm constantly asking, is the system working? And who is it working for?
The system is broken. I think it's more punitive than anything.
And this is not about justice anymore. This is about vengeance.
We're trying to get justice from a justice system that failed us.
how policies impact real people. Hear their stories here on WPLN News.
Here's the latest from WPLN News. As the planet heats up, fall has been getting hotter across the country, and the vast majority of cities are getting their first freezes later in the year. WPLN's Caroline Eggers reports that Nashville set a new record last week for its latest ever first freeze.
This year, Nashville's first freeze fell on November 29th. It's the peak of a decades-long trend. Since 1970, the city's first freezes have been getting much later on average, moving from late October to early November. This is important for a few reasons. A first freeze serves as a key ecological signal, affecting fall foliage, animal hibernation, and bird migration, with secondary effects like worse fall allergies and greater wildfire risk.
This fall tied for Nashville's third hottest on record, and 2024 may end up as the city's hottest to date. A couple of cold troughs are moving through now, then Nashville is forecasted to get back up to 60 degrees next week. A highly pathogenic avian flu is sweeping the country, and a West Tennessee chicken plant might have an outbreak in its flock. A chicken plant in Gibson County, about 100 miles northeast of Memphis, saw a sudden spike in deaths, according to a press release from state veterinarian Dr. Samantha Beatty's office. The sample is still undergoing testing, but Beatty says her team is confident it's the specific avian flu strain known as HPA1. The U.S. Department of Agriculture has been testing wild birds for the virus, and positive results have cropped up in every state. That includes 46 samples in Tennessee as of November 26th. Last week, NPR reported that scientists' concern over the virus is growing. Most human cases have occurred in poultry and cattle workers. It's unclear whether human-to-human transmission has happened yet, but there have been reports of infection without animal contact, including a child in California. The virus has been infecting hundreds of U.S. dairy cattle herds, as well as poultry flocks and wild birds. That means there are so-called reservoirs of virus, giving the agent opportunity to mutate and spread to humans. Last week, Memphis City Council members voted to expand mental health supports for police officers. The city has on-the-job injury services for its employees. Among other things, it helps with medical bills. The policy did cover post-traumatic stress disorder treatment for its police officers, but only if they had sustained physical injuries during the incident. Under this new policy, officers can get that support without physical injuries. The Commercial Appeal reports that the push to expand PTSD treatment gained traction earlier this year. A Memphis Police Department officer died in a shootout in April. Investigators said it was likely friendly fire. Councilwoman Jerry Green, the measure's sponsor, noted the officers who watched their colleague die did not have access to care under the city's program. Democratic state lawmaker John Ray Clemens has filed a state bill to try to make it safer for children walking to school. WKRN reports the bill would fund a new grant program from the Tennessee Department of Transportation. Grants would go to communities near schools that want to build sidewalks and other pedestrian safety measures. Clemens says the lack of sidewalks affects many communities, adding that kids are, quote, having to walk on the side of the road or in ditches. Nashville-based rapper Daisha McBride is having a viral moment right now thanks to a freestyle verse she recorded on the streets in L.A. Senior music writer Julie Height has more.
Daisha McBride had her first taste of viral fame a decade ago. One night, she filmed herself rapping in her dorm room, and the next morning, she had thousands of new Twitter followers, including Missy Elliott and me. Now McBride's having an even bigger online moment thanks to improvising this verse on the spot.
I'm hot year round, no 4 seasons. When we at the pool, fill it up with tequila. She don't take shots, but she just had 4. She ain't finna have a boyfriend no more.
That's the pop songcraft of the Canadian duo Crash Adams, who did a TikTok bit searching for passersby who can rap. Sounds like a setup, right? Like they must have recruited McBride in advance. Nope. McBride says she and her producer Sci-Fi happened to be in LA for studio sessions this summer when she saw the Crash Adams guys post about what they were up to.
I just straight up DM'd them and I was like, I can rap. And so they were like, well, we're actually on Hollywood Boulevard right now filming. Like, if you want to pull up, then like, come on.
McBride strolled up, heard the song, and nailed her bars live in front of a crowd of tourists in 1 or 2 takes. But months went by with no word about the video. And then Crash Adams posted it last week.
To go from a couple views to 50 million views in a week it's been crazy. Y'all know I've been rapping for a long time. So for me, it's just like, this is cool to see I probably gained over 150, 200,000 followers just this week, and the video is not slowing down.
Hotel Party Freestyle featuring Daisha McBride is even available on streaming services now. Julie Height, Nashville Public Radio.
A correction to our story on cost-saving measures at Tennessee State University that aired 2 Fridays ago. We reported that $32 million in federal money intended for a new campus engineering building had been redirected to general operating expenses for the university. In fact, the money was intended for a new agriculture building. You'll find more news anytime at WPLN.org. The U.S. Supreme Court will begin hearing arguments tomorrow on whether Tennessee's ban on gender-affirming care is constitutional. The case is going before the nation's highest court less than 2 years after Tennessee lawmakers passed the bill, which prohibits transgender youth from accessing care like hormone therapy or puberty blockers. While some families of trans kids have filed legal challenges to Tennessee's laws, some have decided to leave the state entirely. WPLN's Miriam spoke with 2 moms who left Tennessee to give their children a different life.
I only have ever lived in Tennessee. It's all I know. I have a lot of pride in being a Tennessean, and giving that up has felt really hard.
We were in such a place of privilege in terms of, not really having to worry about being out, being public about it, because I just knew that, if anything bad were to happen, we could leave, because that was always something in the back of our minds.
We are leaving because of the state's restrictions on gender-affirming care for minors, and more so because of the just general, the atmosphere has just gotten really hostile, and we don't want to raise our kids in that environment.
We obviously don't want our kids to suffer any kind of hardships. We want them to be happy and feel good about themselves. So, what do we do to make sure that Adam feels happy and can live a, fulfilling life? I feel like we couldn't have landed in a better spot for Adam, not just because the school is so affirming and welcoming, but because we just happen to end up in a school that has a really amazing theater program, which is his thing.
I've been here all my life, and it's never been this like just vitriolic and nasty.
Unfortunate that the people in power have such skewed ideas about what's right for kids, because if they listened to the experts and the science, they would see that what we as parents are trying to do for our kids, it's the best thing we can do for them, for their mental health and their safety and their happiness.
So the supermajority that runs our state, the leaders, don't see kids like mine as fully human, fully deserving of the same life and liberty and happiness of other kids. They see me as an insufficient, deficient parent, unable to make healthcare choices for my child. And I don't want to live somewhere where I am not respected as a parent.
Why don't you listen to the experts? It's just, it's so infuriating that the people who are in charge, who have the power, don't do their due diligence like we as parents have done, and have read everything we can get our hands on and consulted every expert we can get in touch with to make sure we're doing right by our kids.
Watching just the complete refusal to acknowledge actual science and data, or to accept that maybe we have differences of opinion on what's appropriate and what's not. But at the end of the day, as a parent, I, in this country of freedom, should have the freedom to get the health care that my doctor, my child, me, and my child's other parent deem the appropriate course of treatment.
When people, ask me if I miss Tennessee, I say, I miss my friends. I miss some of the really cool things about Nashville, but Tennessee broke my heart. That's really what it is. It's a wonderful place full of so many wonderful people who, if they were paying attention to what the legislature does, would be horrified.
The hardest part is leaving behind something we love so much, but everyone who knows and loves us has said, you're doing the right thing. I get why you're doing this. You're doing the right thing, and we'll miss you and we're sad you're leaving, but we know that this is the right thing, and you have to do what you have to do to keep your kids and your family safe.
I've had to stop following a lot of accounts on social media having to do with Tennessee politics, because just like, really? Yeah, and it's been moving here for me personally has been just this sigh of relief. Like, I can just go back to just being a human being and not the activist mom,
There is a real human toll to this culture war, and it's painful, and our kids don't deserve it.
Those are the voices of two moms who left Tennessee because of state laws that restrict what their transgender children can do. WPLN's Miriam produced this report. We do this roundup of Nashville news every weekday, so subscribe in your favorite podcasting app to make sure you never miss an episode. And if you like this, you'll probably enjoy the Nashvillager newsletter too. You'll get perspective from more of my colleagues at Nashville Public Radio and links to the stories we're following. Sign up for those daily emails at WPLN.org/Nashvillager. Thanks so much for listening. Let's make this day a good one, and we'll catch back up tomorrow.